Dan, we were just talking about the deficits. Again, very curious. The fall economic statement projected a $20 billion deficit, I believe, for this fiscal year for the federal government. Now it's $40 billion. Big difference there. A lot of that has to do with some extra spending items on dental and some other things like that. But also on here's what I want to talk to you about. There's a lot of green subsidies in there. I mean, this was almost a Joe Biden budget. Joe Biden was in town in Ottawa the previous week, and it's like almost taking a page from the massive subsidies of the U.S. budget. Give us your commentary on the green subsidies and what that means for business as well.
Look, I understand the challenge the federal government faces. If U.S. is putting huge subsidies in place, will Canadian companies or companies that might have set up in Canada just shift operations to their U.S. affiliates or U.S. locations and bypass the country altogether? So I understand the challenge that the federal government has in terms of trying to compete for attention with the business community when they put subsidies out there. It's one of the reasons why, from a small business perspective, our members generally oppose subsidization of businesses. Yes, during the pandemic, there was some needed support to keep things going as government basically shut down the economy. They needed to keep businesses alive on life support. But in ordinary times, subsidizing businesses really doesn't pay off. And the green subsidies, look, we all know that there's a variety of ways to try to deal with climate change. Trying to use technology and is one good way to try to achieve that with a lighter potential economic effect. But this is a lot of money, and I guess from our members' perspective, a lot of those subsidies get vacuumed up by the large corporate sector. Not a lot of it often gets to smaller and medium-sized firms that just don't hire a battery of consultants to be able to go through what tends to be an incredibly onerous paperwork requirement to get there. So
yeah, that's a good. Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but that's a good point. That the barrier to entry for a lot of these subsidies is way too high for smaller or medium-sized businesses, and indeed, the primary recipients of the subsidies may well be foreign-controlled entities.
You got it. It's the large corporate sector, multinationals that typically are in that game. Smaller and medium-sized firms seldom get recognized in these programs just because the barriers to entry are so significant and the bureaucracy, you have to swear your firstborn to be able to apply. So look, there are a variety of approaches, and there is some stuff in the budget for small and medium-sized firms. I don't want to I don't want to lose that. There's some potential movement on employee ownership trusts, something that we see as positive. So there's a healthy dose of actions that we believe will help small firms. The macro environment, though, is a worry for us right now.
Talk a little bit about the employee-owned trusts. What's that all about?
Yeah, look, we have a big succession wave happening among entrepreneurs right now. Our data shows that about 70% of small and medium-sized business owners are looking to exit their businesses in the next 10 years. That's a huge number of businesses that will be passed from one set of hands to another. One way to do that for business owners is to pass that on to their kids, to the next generation. There was a private members bill a couple of years ago, a Tory private members bill that did actually finally move the ball on that front to make it more tax efficient to sell to your kids, make it essentially the same as if you were selling to a stranger. The government is putting some rules in this budget around how that's going to be done. And we're watching and reviewing those rules right now to see whether they're going to have too negative an effect on businesses wishing to do that. On the positive side, though, the government has put forward some potential changes to allow a business in a tax efficient way to sell part of itself to its employees. So the business owner may sell shares in their business to a variety of workers. While that can happen now, it's really cumbersome to do that. And other countries have got a better way in the UK and the US to make that happen. Getting employees more involved in owning the business, we think has tons of potential. It allows those businesses to operate as going concerns, gets more people involved in business ownership, always a good thing. And it's a credit to the federal government that they're at least looking to move in this direction.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. I remember when I was in government and opposition as an MP that this was an issue that was rearing its head even then 6, 7, 8 years ago, and it could massively impact our economy if there's not an efficient way to transfer these businesses to new business owners. So I'm glad they're finally tackling that. We've got one more segment with our guest, Dan Kelly, coming right after this break.